Welcome to the Geek in Review, the podcast focused on innovative and creative ideas in the legal industry. I'm Greg Lambert, and I am flying solo this week, although maybe Marlene will join us in a little bit. On this week's episode, we are joined by Tom Dunlop, the founder and CEO of Summize, and Laura Proctor, Summize's Chief Marketing Officer. So Tom and Laura, welcome to the Geek in Review.
Thank you for having us.
Indeed.
So before we jump in and talk about your work there at Summize, I sat in on a live demo presentation yesterday, and it was hosted by the National Law Journal. Wicked AI was a sponsor, and even a former Geek and Review guest, LawDroid, sponsored this, where they had, I think it was 13 startups, and they gave them each 8 minutes to do a live presentation. You know, there's a mixed bag of results whenever you have live presentations. There's always something that goes right and something that goes wrong. So I wanted to, while I had Laura and Tom here, kind of talk about what happened there, and then get their feedback on some things that they do, and maybe even some war stories along the way as well, if they don't mind. So let me just kind of say a couple of things that went right, which I think the startups did a great job of going like straight to here is the key to our product. So they hit you first with the thing that would be most relevant to the audience. A lot of them hit on good relevant examples for their audience. So this was mostly law firm, maybe some in-house folks that were looking at the product. So they focused on use cases that fit that audience. And even though, again, 8 minutes, not a lot of time, I think a lot of them were well scripted, but not sounding robotic at the same time, that you could kind of tell, one, they knew the product, they did good demonstrations, and they could follow the script even when, say, the product may have went off script during. Now, let me tell you some things that went poorly, and then we'll jump into the conversation. So again, 8 minutes, not a lot of time. And almost everyone, you could tell, still had about 8 minutes of content that they wanted to cover when their 8 minutes ran out. Live demonstrations where you're using the product live is really risky, and it's, high risk, high reward, but it's also, high chance of failure. And there was a little bit of both of that. I think there were some folks that, it was good to kind of see the product kind of churn and how quickly it came back. But sometimes it wasn't good to see how long it took to get some of the things back. And that little spinning circle is never a good thing when you're in a presentation. There was one poor presenter that, they ran out of time, but for some reason their video stayed up so you could still see them while the next vendor had come in to present. And you could just kind of see the energy leaving the poor fellow's face. And it wasn't until the other person started sharing their screen that they were finally let off the hook and were able to leave. I'm sure you guys have been in similar situations, whether it's in a group that's presenting at a conference or online, or even if you're given time in front of a in-house team or law firm team. Laura, let me start with you. When you are sending poor Tom out to do a demo, what kind of advice do you have when you have time limitations?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, totally feel the pain of the people that we're demoing, because we all know that 100 times it would have gone right, and then the one time you're doing a live demo, something goes wrong, and it's usually things outside of your control, like the internet, or you don't necessarily know the qualities of the venue. So I would say one thing that we've tried is just doing a screen recording beforehand. So the delivery is still live. So you're still sort of talking somebody through the journey, but at least you've got the assurance that nothing's going to go wrong on the day. So
I
think
that.
Forward preparation in that sense, it's still, it's not an edited version of the product. It's still a live kind of experience, but you're not reliant on those technology issues. So that's probably my marketing top tip, just to stop the anxiety beforehand.
That's actually a great idea, because I have also seen, like, Marlene and I do a thing every year, usually for there's a skills conference that O's puts on in New York, and there's a pre-conference that they do where they have the actual presentation itself is totally pre-recorded, and so that way it definitely fits within a certain time frame. And I was having a conversation with some others about this and suggested that, and they were like, yeah, but that kind of takes away from some of the especially if you have audience participation.
Exactly.
And so, Laura, I think that idea, I hadn't even thought of that, of having the actual part where the product is performing, that part is pre-recorded so that you know exactly what's going on and you're not subject to the whims of the internet on any given Tuesday.
Exactly. Yeah, and you can still pause it, if you need to extend the conversation. But yeah, that would be my first tip. And then the second thing is, generally people only remember 3 main points. So in the 8 minutes, I'd just say, what are the 3 things that you want people to remember, and just really hone in on those. That would be my top advice.
Good. So Tom, have you had any experience where things went well or went off the rails?
A lot of experience with both, I think. I think I'll start with an experience that didn't go so well, which was actually less to do with technical challenges. I remember we tried to be quite creative in the delivery of our talk, using props to illustrate the point and to really engage the audience, because it was that kind of event where they were trying to make it entertaining as well as the content you were trying to deliver. So I had a number of props, and I'm pretty sure that kind of 3 out of the 4 props just went wrong. Like I dropped a piece of paper which was meant to kind of illustrate a contract that was really long, and it fell off the stage. I went to pick up another prop that basically I dropped, and it kind of broke. And so even though it was less to do with technical, you kind of don't foresee that those kind of issues are going to happen. But I think my overall thing with where it's gone well is actually, I mean, there's so much advice out there, and I've been, whether you're pitching to investors or whether you're pitching to clients or whether you're pitching to, potential prospects, about what you should cover, how you should approach it. And I think that's almost the problem, is that a lot of people focus on the content to fit, almost like a mold that they believe they should follow in a particular order, and then they script it accordingly. Honestly, the best times that I've had, or the best pitches that I've had, has been when I've told the best story, when I've related to as many people in the audience as I can. And my background being for our products, my background being a lawyer, if I spent more time just talking about the pain that I had as a lawyer, which led to Summize, naturally I built a much better rapport with the audience. Even if I don't really mention the functionality of Summize, they'll remember that I was a lawyer, that I felt the pain, that they felt a connection with me, and that actually 9 times out of 10 is going to stand you in a much better stead than demoing all the features of your product and worrying about squeezing that into the time. So I think that's really important. I actually now follow a different methodology, less to do with scripting according to slides. I kind of follow this thing called, I call it like the 5 peaks, where I start off with a bit of whether it be a statement or some kind of curiosity statement, bring them into the conversation, get them thinking, why have I just said that? Or it's a fact or a figure. Then I'll do the 3 points, as Laura said, and I'll try and hone my conversation around those 3 points. And then I'll reinforce the 3 points and kind of some kind of closing statement, which reinforces that first statement that I mentioned. So I kind of 8 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, as long as I know that I'm covering off those 5 points, kind of what happens in between, I'm quite relaxed to kind of freestyle it a little bit, because I know that that's going to be the key, is storytelling, getting the 3 points across, strong close, strong open, strong close, and it's pretty much always going to go well in that environment.
Excellent. Yeah, I just remember a presentation I did, and actually it was just in my office, where I had put some audio in on a presentation and gave it to the IT people and the marketing people, and then they loaded up the wrong one, and it had no audio. And I was like, oh no. So sometimes, and it wasn't me, it wasn't audio of me, it was audio of other people. So it wasn't like I could just step in and say, well, Sarah said this. And so, Yeah, the nice thing about this is, nothing ever goes as planned, and it's usually some of that going off script that actually has the biggest impact. I think so. As long as you know your topic, your audience. I think what your three takeaways are going to be. I think even if everything else went wrong, as long as you know those three things, I think you'll be fine. So,
and even if it goes wrong, it's memorable, and we're talking about it, right? So
yeah. Absolutely.
Any PR is good PR, as they say.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, thank you both for going on that little side trip with me. So let's now talk about Summize. So Tom, Summize is I've heard it referred to as a nice game changer in the contract lifestyle management space. So you mind kind of going back in time and telling the story of starting the company, and if I'm the question I like to ask, especially founders, is if I'm your customer, what's the problem I was facing that led me to seek you out?
Yeah, definitely. So, well, I guess for some context, my background, I guess, prior to Summize was being a lawyer for a number of years. So I was an in-house lawyer, worked in primarily tech businesses. So I guess day-to-day experienced, to some extent, all of the pain that a CLM now addresses. But I think the specific, I guess, frustration or light bulb moment really was quite a narrow focus. As with most SaaS products, they usually start with a relatively narrow focus that then grows into something bigger. So at the time, I was the GC at a software company. We were going through a due diligence, essentially a transaction. And I was having to manually review, hundreds of contracts, which were signed, locked PDFs. And I was essentially manually kind of going through these different documents. I couldn't search them because they were locked. And I was trying to find the same 3-4 things that mattered, understanding the key risks in those contracts. So I was literally, some I was printing out the highlighter, some I was trying to do on screen with a PDF and scrolling. I was creating an Excel spreadsheet on a different screen, and then painstakingly would go through these, 100-page MSAs to pull out these provisions. So it took me about 3 months alongside my day job to try and get this job done. And almost the most frustrating thing was, at the end of that process, I realized that my naming convention in terms of what I wrote as the answers in the spreadsheet actually didn't really make any sense. For one of them, I was kind of, is there indemnity? Yes. The next one I'd be like, yes for IP. And the next one I'd be like, kind of one way, or, and none of it was consistent that it was actually, necessarily usable data going forward. Yeah. So it was at that point that I kind of suppose my co-founder, who was a senior software engineer at the time, and was basically like, how can we create a really usable summary of a contract in seconds? And that was very much where the name comes from in terms of Summize. And the first kind of real use case that we were looking to address was creating instant summaries of signed contracts was the initial idea. But I think that the key thing was I also worked in a fast-paced, tech business. So I also experienced the pain of pre-signature review negotiation. It's just that I guess that wasn't necessarily the catalyst for our first product.
Yeah. On the summarization, as an attorney that's working with the documents, what were you seeing as the value of creating that summary?
I think there was twofold, really. So one was, at the time, a very quick way to get an understanding of both risk and opportunity in contracts from a legal perspective, because that was kind of my job. I was kind of the safeguarder of risk, but also I'd like to think of myself as being kind of the gatekeeper to some opportunity in certain contractual relationships that we had. And contracts fundamentally underpin every important relationship that drives value in a business. So it was very much kind of, for me, it was an enabler to do my job at the best way I could. But I think the other thing that I found was the rest of the business didn't understand contracts. They didn't understand legal language. They would ask me a very natural language question, and I'd almost have to act as a bit of a translator between the contract and them. So there was one way, which was for my own personal use, but I think the biggest thing that we found by doing the product was, how can we create a product that the business could use, and how can we turn legal language into a natural language, usable summary, that they didn't need that kind of intermediate translator being the lawyer there to explain what it even means. So they were probably the two biggest, I guess, areas that we focus on or realize was the big benefit.
Yeah. So you've got this idea. You've got you're lucky enough to have a friend who's a software engineer that you can go and pull in for your initial vision. So how did that start off? How well did it go? And then once you've kind of realized that sort of vision, did the vision of Summize expand after that? So what's kind of the current vision that you have as well?
Yeah, so it's an interesting question. I think most people, particularly if you've not started a business but you've got good ideas, I think a lot of people really wait till they've crafted the idea to perfection. I think that's the most important step. Whereas every business that I've seen or spoken to or that I guess been involved with never goes like that. You start with a pretty narrow vision. You get to the point where you work that out, you speak to customers, you obtain customers, and then from there, whether you pivot or focus or expand. So for us, we quickly realized that we were becoming a project tool, essentially. So people were uploading contracts, we'd summarize them. They were like, great, now what? Are you our contract management system? Are you a project management system? And we sold to both law firms and in-house legal teams. So we really quickly realized that we needed to focus on one of those sectors, but also be a bit more holistic so people understood where we sat, I guess, in their, tech stack. So that's where we were focused on contract management and the in-house legal world. So I think the vision then became, we'd want to be a holistic kind of tool for in-house lawyers to deal with their contracts and their wider business as well. So we very much leaned into developing pre-signature functionality, primarily through Microsoft Word, but also drafting capabilities, just so basically every touch point with a contract, we were there. And that was from inception through to signature. And I think that became kind of that next vision for Summize. I think, where has that developed to today? Well, one of the unique things about Summize, I guess, is that we decided very early on that we needed to embed our intelligence or experience into tools that people use. We know that, a lot of the business touch contracts, and we don't want to make the entire business adopt a legal tool, as it were, or a contract tool. So a lot of the emphasis we've always put on is how can we make, sales create contracts without ever coming to summize.com or marketing or, whatever business division may be. So I think now what's been interesting about our vision is it's very much, we have a great relationship with the ultimate business user as a software product. It's not just legal. We actually have a direct relationship with, business users as well as legal users, and they never go to summize.com. So the vision is, well, actually, could we expand our functionality and be more relevant to, the whole office of the CFO? Could we actually orchestrate processes across any document that's relevant to, finance, IT, HR, procurement, and legal? And I think that we're realizing with quite a unique approach, we could own the business user relationship, but also orchestrate processes across all those different functions. So yeah, it's definitely expanded over time from being a point tool for one use case, full CLM, to potentially, a lot bigger than that now.
Yeah, well, I think that segue is nice, Laura. I love bringing in the CMOs because it's one thing to talk about the development and what spurred the idea behind it, but I would say probably prior to November 2022, before AI became the big thing, CRMs were or CLMs rather were kind of like the hot topic. Everyone was talking about contract lifecycle management and just how many tools that were on there. And I think Tom has touched on it. So I would like to get your perspective on this, because it's one thing to kind of address the in-house legal team with a legal product. So how do you develop a marketing strategy that goes, beyond that and goes actually out to the CFO and maybe even the sales team, as Tom was talking about?
Yeah, it's a good question. So I guess first and foremost, our primary buyer is still the legal team. So we have to make sure that in all of our communications,
You got to
we're
keep them happy
reassuring
too,
them.
right?
Yeah, we're reassuring them that, of course, it's a best-in-class tool for the things that you need to use it for. So, of course, we have a really intelligent central repository where we know you're going to want to store all of your contracts and summarize them and run analytics. And so, of course, we've got you covered. And I think the way that we've done that in a different way is by integrating the legal review processes into Word. So I think Tom has always been very passionate about the fact that most lawyers use Word and enjoy using Word. So why try to convince them that they should start editing contracts in a different tool? So I think that kind of gave us the starting position of, okay, so if that's going to be our market position and our strategy, it's really leaning into making it easier for people to work where they already work and embedding the legal experiences within their sort of daily routine. So I think for us, it's a case of educating the legal team that for your legal processes and the CLM rollout to be successful, you have to have partners and stakeholders in the rest of the business. And the best way to do that is to get them engaged with the tool within their existing collaboration suite. So, within Outlook, within Teams, within Slack, and sort of change the perception, I guess, of legal as the bottleneck to legal as the enabler. And again, linking to what Tom said earlier, that's his personal experience and belief. And I think that's really what's fed our positioning in the market. And it's something that definitely resonates because we know that legal teams can struggle to secure budget, for example. But if they go into a business case in partnership with a sales leader, a CFO, we know that their chances of securing the budget are much greater because anything that slows down a deal gets the attention of the business. So I think it is that shift to seeing this as an enablement, sort of more strategic business tool.
Yeah. Oh, well, I imagine because one of the big talking points over probably the past 5 or 6 years for the in-house team is how do we stop being the department of no, and seen more as a collaborator with the business units that you're representing. That it's not just about telling them everything they need to do to reduce their risk down to zero, but rather to understand the risk and then be able to manage that risk at the same time. It's something that I hear from in-house about complaining about their outside counsel because their outside counsel is giving them instructions on how to get the risk down to zero, and they're like, I don't need that. What I need to do is know how to manage my risk. So I'm wondering if there was any in-house counsels that were really surprised that you were kind of showing them how to expand their relationships through a CLM tool. Was there the customers that you presented this to that was like a light bulb moment for them?
Yeah, I think certainly from speaking with a lot of general counsel, I mean, it comes back to our point before about how you present, a story or a pitch to a customer. And when we kind of understood their pain in a way that they live and breathe and say, look, the reality is, you are probably drowned by volume. You consider the bottleneck, all these things that you've just talked about. Now, if you were to buy a tool and actually go and try and get those same business stakeholders to adopt a tech product alongside the issues you already have, like what do you think the chances of that being successful are? And I think it is a bit of a light moment. They're like, yeah, actually, I want to be more efficient, but it is absolutely contingent on bringing the business along on that journey as well as, as well as legal. So I think it's just relating to the pain and they understand the product. Most people comment, I mean, it's almost like a terrible marketing tagline. Laura probably will virtually kick me under the table, but a lot of people do say, you can tell it's been built by a lawyer for lawyers sort of thing. It's been that kind of approach kind of really resonates. So it does change the focus. And I think it is a little bit of education because there's a lot of noise in the market. And I appreciate that, as you alluded to earlier, it's, the CLM market, the legal tech market, there's a lot of products and there's a lot of people, trying to find their voice in a very crowded market about their functionality particularly. So we try and bring it back to almost first principles or basics where it's, well, forget products. Like, how do you work today? and what do you want the future to look like? Or what do you think is realistic? And then apply the products on top of it. And I think that's where we get a lot of success.
Excellent. Well, I know, especially with legal in-house teams, which don't bill by the hour, I think they're viewing some advancements in technology, including but not necessarily limited to the AI tools that have just kind of flooded the market over the past couple of years. So, they've got lean teams. They're seen as overhead. They want to collaborate. They don't want to be seen as the department of no. So how do you see tools like AI and others impacting both what you're doing with Summize, but also helping the legal teams kind of evaluate their efficiency and impact for their organization?
Yeah, I think we actually approach this in our implementation. So what we've done in implementation is design something we call the HERO framework. I won't run through the kind of acronym, but broadly you could argue it follows like a 3-step process that we go through with customers. So the kind of first step really is to reduce the volume into legal, because a lot of people buy tech, and actually what it does is potentially increase volume into legal, because you're making it easier to make, for the wider business to submit requests.
No good deed goes unpunished.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. And we see that a lot. It's kind of like, it's really easy for people now to just throw tickets over the fence to legal, and we've now got to deal with a higher volume. So I think the key for me is the first step that we usually take with our clients is, I appreciate we have to get onto, legal efficiency and getting your signed contracts into the repository, but can we get the business to self-serve on any documents? And again, our approach is very much via Slack, Teams, Gmail, Outlook, Salesforce, whatever it might be. So we reduce the volume by enabling self-service and also centralizing those requests through a legal front door. That deals with an element of volume that hopefully disappears, that's low value but high volume work. Mm-hmm. We then focus on the next step to do with legal efficiency. So now we've got work coming to legal that you could argue should come into legal. We talk about how can we make legal more efficient with the work that comes through, and that's primarily delivered through, as Laura referenced, our kind of Microsoft Word add-ins. So we have a lot of tools, AI based, and that's, it could be a summary that you need. It could be an AI redlining. It could be that you just need to access your playbook or ask AI to redraft a clause for you rather than manually type it in. And that's really the kind of second stage, is to say, let's make you more efficient in anything that hits legal. And then finally, we then track, I guess, all of that efficiency via analytics. So we understand, how does a contract progress from the creation through to the review, negotiation? Where are the legal teams spending the most amount of time still, after we've created these efficiencies? And that can usually then focus on certain areas. For example, the playbook, you're always spending time negotiating these particular provisions. And that might be an area that, maybe a bit more relaxed on the next one, which means, you kind of, to your point, always say no. On that particular point, let's say yes a few more times, and the speed of the legal process will be much quicker. So I think the net effect of all of those efficiency gains kind of just enables a legal team to elevate their efficiency and impact. And I think the other thing that we've seen with using Summize, and this was a great user story that we had, because we do it in, I'd say, quite a cool way. We have chatbots in Slack and Teams and things like that. Yeah. We actually find that the personal brand of legal goes up, because the wider business not only are more efficient because they're self-service, but now they're saying, oh, this is great, I've got a chatbot. Like legal have introduced the chatbot into the business. At one point, one business actually got a standing ovation in all hands when they demoed the product. I'm not just saying this is genuinely what happened, but almost I was more grateful about that than actually the tool providing the efficiency. It was, wow, legal's reputation or personal brand has just gone through the roof as a result of the tool that we're using. So I think there's loads of efficiency gains, but I think one of the biggest things is, just by using it, it increased the personal brand of legal.
Is there anything specific with AI tools that you think are going, that will be kind of changing the game, or do you think it's still going to be kind of like nibbling around the edges?
I think AI. There's a lot of talk. I think everyone's looking for silver bullets with AI. I think but since ChatGPT came along, there's There's the gimmicky use cases to start with, and then there was actual use cases, but probably single tasks that AI could complete at any one time. The reality is with AI, it's just a natural progression. So what we'll see is just, AI completing single, relatively basic tasks to more complex kind of multitask elements. So it will be able to do let's say automate a workflow to different people based on a response. It might then create a task, and then from there, it might automatically do something in a document. In our view, it might do an AI redline for you based on the answer to the previous task. So it's kind of knitting together more complex tasks. But I mean, there's a lot of noise about, is it going to be, autonomous in contract negotiation? Can you replace lawyers? I think all of that is not quite the silver bullet that I think people are wanting it to be. It'll be a natural progression through just more complex tasks kind of being put together.
Yeah. Well, Laura, I know that you guys have expanded your Boston office quite a bit over the past few months and years. So what kind of trends are you seeing in the U.S. market that Summize is having to adopt to that you may not see in the UK or Europe market?
Yeah, I think the biggest difference really is just the maturity of the market category and the buyer. So what we tend to find is in the UK and European market, it's still quite often what we call a first generation purchase. So they know they've got a pain, but they don't necessarily have a tool in place. So with that market, it's all about education, about the different types of solutions, the different approaches you can take. And really, we spend a lot of time helping them, build a business case, create a compelling event, and giving them confidence in how to buy legal tech, because oftentimes they haven't done it before. So we're sort of guiding them through the journey of how you actually buy this in the first place. Whereas I think the flip side is in the US, it's more common that they're already on their second or their third CLM, and so it's generally they already know the problems that they've been trying to solve, and often they have seen pain in implementation where maybe the product hasn't lived up to expectations, or they've really struggled to get the full value out of the solution. So I think with the US, it's a lot more around speaking about our implementation process earlier on, to really provide that reassurance that we can get time to value quickly, and focusing on the hero framework that Tom referenced is really great for that, because we can set clear milestones with very clear metrics in sort of three week sprints, which means you're not waiting 12 weeks or longer to see value from this new tool. You can switch and sort of see almost immediate value. So I think it's just a slightly different time in the life cycle of where they're at in their buyer journey. And I guess for me, like, the challenge is conveying both of those messages at the same time when you only have one website, for example. So I think where you can tailor the message, and obviously working very closely with the sales team, we just make sure that the material that we provide in the toolkits, particularly for sales and our customer success team, are designed to be sort of memorable and informative and adding value sort of at every engagement. Really, I think that's the key.
Yeah, interesting. Just to kind of bring this full circle, I think, from our initial conversation on presenting, and Laura, you talking about having the three things that you want to make sure the audience walks away with. The hero concept that you guys have come up with sounds really interesting, and being able to organize not just how you present it, but implement as well. It sounds like you guys are pretty well along this I hate to say it, this hero's journey. As you get,
there's all sorts you can play with it. Like, again, it sort of ties into our brand value, really, which is we want to make legal the champion. And as Tom said earlier, creating a personal brand for the legal team is really important to us, and that really links well with we're helping you become the hero, the contract hero within your organization. So I think it allows us to have some personality as a brand as well. And and kind of tying into that emotive connection. This is an emotional conversation. We're solving genuine pain. So I think to have a bit of fun with it is important as well.
Yeah, yeah. Well, Tom, we're at the point in the interview where we ask you our crystal ball question. So what do you see as we go into this new year? I can't believe 2025. It sounded so far away and now it's here. What do you see as any kind of trends or challenges or changes in the market for in the legal technology space? And how do you think you and Summize are going to approach these?
It's an interesting question, and I think the positive for me, almost for the last few months of this year, has been genuine value being obtained from AI on a day-to-day basis. I think we had a lot of noise about AI in the last, like you say, 2 years, particularly last 12, 18 months. I think certainly we're seeing with our customers that people are using AI on a day-to-day basis now, accepting it, and they're getting value from it, and they're not scared by using AI. So with that context, I think 2025 for me is kind of what I alluded to earlier. It's going to be a continuation of that theme, and I think we don't want to, as a product, as a company, almost like lose momentum with a kind of legal adopting this really clever technology that fundamentally focuses on pretty low value menial tasks that no one really wants to do anyway. And so we're kind of really leaning into that, and we're going to be, I guess, looking at how AI can automate more generic workflows, how we can have more complexity around, I guess, between clicks or between human interaction. What can, I guess, AI do? So there's a number of areas we're doing that across the products, but I think that will be a generic theme across, legal tech. And I think one of the interesting areas, this is, sort of something related to Summize, but I think it'd be interesting as an industry is, I do wonder if we're finally going to get to a point where more on the legal services side, we have the confidence to monetize and our data, I guess, lawyers' knowledge rather than time. And I think that everyone's been talking about this for years. I think there's the green shoots already of, I guess, the ability to provide knowledge in a way, particularly using a CLM like ours, for example, where knowledge can be put into the model and you can almost scale that indefinitely and have simultaneous, hundreds of customers simultaneously using, I guess, verified knowledge without the lawyer actually being involved. So I do wonder if, I guess a more bolder prediction is, are we actually going to finally get a disruption to the billable hour and in my view, 10x the size of the legal market. If we can do that, I think it makes knowledge more accessible, and it will only mean the market will increase kind of tenfold. But specifically with Summize, I think what we'll see is just a more gradual complexity of what AI can handle, and also I guess, how comfortable people are with using AI to handle that more and more tasks. And that's really going to be the theme probably of 2025.
Yeah. Look, Laura, anything to add to the projections?
I think it's just marketing's work is never done, right? Your website's never done. The message is constantly evolving. So I think for us, it's leaning into how do we create those sort of bold and memorable experiences. So, we go to a lot of events, particularly US events, where we want to do things a little bit differently. So we've tried things like the AI red line race, where we're encouraging people to get hands-on with the tech and things like that. So I think for us, it's just continuing to be creative and think outside the box in what is becoming quite a confused and crowded market. So it's a good opportunity for us, I think, to continue leading into sort of our areas of difference.
Yeah. Well, it's going to be exciting times, I can tell you that. So, well, Tom Dunlop and Laura Proctor, I want to thank both of you from Summize coming in and talking with me today. This has been great.
Thanks so much for having us.
All right. And of course, thanks to all of our listeners for joining us and taking the time to listen to the Geek and Review podcast. So if you guys enjoy the show, please share it with a colleague. If you want to reach out to us, feel free to reach us on LinkedIn. Tom and Laura, I'll make sure that we put links on the show notes. But what's a good way for the listeners to reach out and learn more?
Yeah, the most simple way is just to go straight to summize.com. You'll also find us on LinkedIn if you just search for Summize, and we'd be happy to connect there.
All right. And as always, the music that you hear is from Jerry David DeSica. Thank you, Jerry. All right. Thank you both for being here. Bye.
Thanks so much.